Yo, yo, yo! Welcome to the first episode ever of the All In Podcast. It's a podcast for casual League of Legends players, and we're here for you. You know, we're basically here to cut the fluff and make sure that you have everything that you need to know, the important stuff anyway, so that you can do what's most important with your time, and that's climb that elo. So we're primarily geared for us lower tier players. By lower, I mean anywhere from iron to platinum, even though platinum is still, in my opinion, really high. But we're those who aren't the 3%, who are challenger and grandmaster and master tier players. We're the majority of folks who like to play League. We play as much as we can, but you know, we don't have the time to dedicate all of this time to getting really, really good. So we're just going to talk about things around Summoner's Rift, news, relevant information, all of that stuff that hopefully will just be useful to you so that you can go ahead and just forget all the noise and get in there and climb and do your best to get in there. So I'm excited. This is the first episode, like I said, and the way it's going to work is this. So I will be hosting. I have two co-hosts that will be regulars here. So if you guys want to unmute your mics, you are ready to be live here. But we have Light, who you guys know. He's AG Light, play some games with us, or Light the Waiter. And we also have Style, who, as you know, is Style on him 1, 2, 3, but it's Style. And so these two guys, I felt like, you know, they, first of all, they're very handsome gentlemen. So that was the first criteria, even though I've never seen them. I've seen Josh, but also they're very smart at League. So yeah, so guys, if you want to say hello to the stream and to the podcast, you feel free to do that right now.
What's up, everyone? How are you doing tonight?
Nice. Hey, so we're gonna just have them do a brief little intro. You guys know my journey as a League of Legends player, or maybe you don't. So why don't I go ahead and start? And we're just gonna do a brief intro right now. We won't do this every time, but since it's the first episode, if you're just listening to us, you're like, who the heck are these guys? So my name is the League Dad. I'm a League of Legends streamer. I love League of Legends. I've been playing since the end of season 1 into season 2. I'm 35 years old. I'm old in the video game world and the League of Legends world, but I love it, and I have never stopped loving it, and I'm still bad at it, but I love the game. I still want to get better, and I still think I can get better, and so I'm still very involved with what's going on, trying to keep up to date with the changes. I've played just about every role. I still stuck around the high silver, low gold area, but you know what? I think this is my year. This is my year to get to platinum. So that's what I'm trying to do. So partly this podcast is for you guys, but really it's for me to get better. So, what you're going to be finding out is that these guys are going to be explaining things that they will explain in a way that even myself can understand. And if I can understand, then trust me, you guys will understand. All right. Next, we got Light the Waiter. Light, you can go ahead and take a couple minutes here, introduce yourself, your history with League, and you know, where you're at right now with the game.
Yeah, so my name's Light. I've been playing League for about 2 seasons now, so I'm relatively new to the whole thing. But I guess before League, I've been playing competitive fighting games since I was like a tiny little kid. I started playing Super Smash Brothers competitively when I was 10 years old.
What?
And people didn't expect a 10-year-old kid to be going to tournaments and winning, but, you know, I would. So nonetheless,
that's awesome.
You know, I've had this like fighting game mentality for forever. And so 2 seasons ago, a bunch of friends of mine introduced me to League, started playing, hit plat my first season, and since then I kind of just weaned off ranked and been playing more casually. But yeah, I guess that's my story.
That's great, man. I didn't even know that about the Smash and the competitive gaming there. Real quick before we get on to Josh, are you still playing Smash now competitively, or are you still really good?
I still play on and off every once in a while.
All right.
I'm not too big into the competitive scene, but every once in a while, you know, if I'm over at a friend's house, we'll bust out Smash and I'll show them what a competitive player looks like.
Nice. Have you played the new one at all?
Yeah, I own it. Play it a bit.
Cool.
Fun.
Nice. All right. Nice. All right. Style. And if you heard me I called him Josh. That is his name as well. It's my name as well. So, you know, you may hear me slip up every now and then. But what's up, Style? Let us know who you are.
Okay, my name's Style. I guess most of you know me. I started League, let's say, 4 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah, 4 years ago. I'm 22. Before that, I didn't really play much PC games, or just like PlayStation on and off. And I was more of a like outdoors type of person, but it was less than I was less into like I didn't play much video games when I was like a little kid. It was always like going outside and things like that.
Okay, cool. So you said 4 years, and so this is your fourth year?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice. And like I said, these guys are, pretty knowledgeable about the game. I've known them for, a few months now. They're fun to play with. They've also really helped me when it comes to explaining things that I'm like, well, I didn't even know that. I didn't understand that. And so I thought they'd be perfect as co-hosts because as we talk about these things, they're going to be able to do that. And so, like I said, if they can break it down for me, they can break it down for you, and we can cipher through all of that stuff, and you can hopefully improve your game as you continue to climb on the Rift. All right, let's get going. Here's a brief list of some of the topics we want to hit on today. We're going to be talking about the Kayle rework, the on-hit Neeko, removal of positional ranks. I want to talk a little bit about this game of the week. And I don't know if we're going to do this every time, but if you haven't seen this already, G2 vs Fnatic this past weekend was amazing. So we'll talk about that. Champ recommendations of the week. So I asked them to kind of come to the podcast having a champion that they could recommend, for the week that maybe might be worth for us, if you haven't done so already, to try learning, because maybe they're either strong right now or they're easy to learn or they have a lot of carry potential and that sort of thing. And then finally, we'll talk about how you guys can send in topics and questions so that we can have more content to talk about if there's anything in particular that you want to know. So let's get going and let's get moving on to the first topic of our show today, which is the Kayle rework. And I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys talk about your first impression so far. So I'll start with you, Light, and then we'll go to Style. But Light, let us know your first impressions on this rework.
I do want to say that I've always been a huge nerd when it comes to League lore, and I was very excited to hear that Kayle and Morgana were being reworked, because one, it meant that their lore is actually canon now, instead of Riot just being like, haha, no, Kayle and Morgana don't actually exist.
Nice.
I was really excited, so I played Kayle a lot, and I have to say, this is definitely one of the best reworks they've done in a while, in my opinion.
Wow. That's interesting because, from what I've heard, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of people are, we'll get into it more, but I guess a lot of people feel like it's a good rework, but it's almost like because she's so weak early on, it feels like you're almost like if you have a Kayle on your team, it's like 4v5 until she finally hits a certain point. But I guess that's always been her play style, but I think maybe they've defined and refined that kind of role that she fits in with better on. What about you, Style? What do you think of this Kayle rework?
I haven't personally played Kayle yet, but I've seen a lot of Kayles in like ranked games and things like that. I know that like the first week she came out, everyone who played her was just garbage. So I just started banning Kayle just so my team wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
Because not many people knew how to play her.
Exactly.
But I know John's played like 16 games ranked playing Kayle, and he has like a 75% win rate.
Oh wow. That's
so I think
crazy.
if you can get to level 16, it's really hard to lose. But I think before level 16, it's like really hard.
And
especially because she's like melee. She's melee at level 1, right?
That's right. Yep. Okay. So I mean, and for reference, like how good is John? Is he pretty good at picking up? New champs?
I think the reason John does well on it is because he's super safe, right? So
yeah. Good. Okay.
If you give him a lane and because most people, if you have your way stacking up, and like you can get like a couple CS, sometimes you walk up to get the CS anyway.
Yeah.
But John will like give up the whole wave if he needs to.
And that seems to be working then. Yeah, because I think that's the temptation, because you're just like, I'm missing this stuff, but we'll transition right into there, because she is known to be it is a she, right? Kayle is a she, right?
Yeah, she's a she.
Okay. That's one thing. Okay, Kayle, yeah. I didn't want to keep saying she and her without knowing for sure. Yeah, so the thing is, she's always been kind of this late game champion that if you can get there, then, you better watch out, other team. But the impression I got from hearing, other people talk about Kayle is that she's incredibly weak, if not weaker than what she was early game, and some have even compared her to even being worse early than champions like Kassadin, who Kassadin obviously is, again, a person who scales with levels, and when they reach a certain level, they're just, it's game over. But with Kassadin, some people say, well, at least he can do some things, and he's not that oppressive, early on, or he's easier to stay alive with. And same with GP, saying that you can still do stuff as GP even with your ult and stuff, and you scale later. How do you guys feel about that? And just, I guess, your experience, or like, what do you think of her early game? And is she as bad as everyone's saying, like, as far as like, that early game, compared to, trying to wait it out and get to that late game? So what do you think about that, Light?
I definitely think that absolutely she's much weaker than she was before the rework in terms of early game strength. Just because she's melee now, right?
Yeah.
And so in top lane you have all these horrible matchups where if you are a melee going into a melee, you're just going to lose. You're never going to win against a Renekton in lane. You're never going to win against a Darius, a Garen, so on, so on. So I think that a big part of playing new Kayle is understanding that you just lose lane against a lot of these matchups until you hit level 11.
So what you're saying is that if you tilt easily, you should probably not play Kayle early on.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to you need to accept the fact that you are going to lose lane, and you also need to be willing to give up CS. You need to understand, like, oh, I'm not going to get a CS lead against this Renekton. It's not worth dying to get that one caster behind Renekton,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I feel like even with Nasus, like, again, another champ that, he's decent early, I think. I mean, he's weak, obviously, but he is okay, and I feel like that's what people have said. Kayle, you kind of have to learn how weak she really is. What about you, Style? What do you think of her early game weakness?
Okay, so basically, what I was saying were all like top lane matchups. I haven't seen her much in top lane anyway.
Oh, really?
I've seen a lot of Kayle mid lane, but it might be different in like different regions.
Yeah, I've seen her top.
Yeah, but I know a lot of like in E West, it's people aren't very patient. There's so many like skirmishes in the jungle. I guess like clan fiestas, right? And because of that, I don't think you can always pick Kayle. But I would say like in silver and gold, you can get away with like just farming because they don't go for things like early game junglers, and they don't go for things like risky Baron calls, right? Like if you think about when you take Baron, it's always like you made a pick, or you see two people bot lane. But if you see things like, oh, you don't think about like, oh, this person's just recalled, we can take Baron here quickly, right? So I think that's one of the things to realize. And things like, you don't see champs like who are really strong early game being picked. So I think the only early game jungler I've seen in like gold and silver is like Rek'Sai and Lee Sin. Like no one plays Elise. No one plays like a lot of the super like early game junglers. So I think in that case you can afford to pick Kayle. But if you play like silver gold, I think you can get away with it, but you need to like understand the champ.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because, and I think here's the fear. Actually, Purple made he just commented in chat, and he made a good observation, which is kind of what, I was wondering, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it, because like if you pick Kayle, my worry is that like I feel like I could eventually, I could play safe, I could, wait to scale. The frustrating, I think, thing, the thing is, especially with, all these weak early, better late champions, is that can your team play around that? And I think that was the kind of like point that a lot of other people were trying to make, is that, she is so weak early, she's basically useless. And so will your team, know that you're pretty much useless early on? And I'm always worried that, they're just going to feed, and like will it go beyond like trying to come back even if you scale? So that's my thinking on that. Do you guys think that's an issue, especially in our elos? I know we're ranging from plat, and I'm in high silver, low gold, but even in lower games, I know games last longer, but do you think it might be too much of a stomp before you can get Kayle in the game? What do you guys think?
I definitely think that is a concern in these lower elo games, because Kayle is before level 11, her only utility in a team fight is her ultimate. Otherwise, she's just going to die. And the thing is that like that's pre-level 11. which tends
Yeah.
to not happen in higher rank games, but in lower elo games, you'll
Mm.
have lanes that snowball so hard that laning phase is over by 10
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Okay. What
yeah,
about what about you, Style?
I think in the games I've seen her in lower elo, she's actually better than higher elo.
Oh,
But
interesting.
you always have. It's not just kill that you have that issue with, right? Oh, my
Mm.
mid laner's gonna feed,
Yeah.
and then we're
Yeah.
gonna lose the game, right? That's
Yeah.
like a general champion thing.
It's true. It's
So
true.
with kill, at least you have late game. But if you have someone like say you pick like a really strong early game champion and your mid
Yeah.
laner still feeds on that, then you're even more screwed than if you
That's
had like
true.
a kill or something.
Yeah, and I think I actually kind of agree with you on that to the point where, I guess in my elo, which is again high silver, low gold, I feel like most people understand that if you have a Jax on your team and he died a couple times, it's not the end of the world because he's going to scale like a champ, or same if you have a Vayne, or something like that. So I feel like there's some level of understanding with that, and perhaps unless you're really low in the lower elos, I feel like maybe they understand that to an extent where you will probably be behind early game, and hopefully they play around that, and not try to engage in anything dumb. Um, so what do you guys think? Like, let's talk about her strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, we've talked a lot about her being really weak early. Let's talk about her power spikes. That's a big thing. If you guys don't know, again, power spikes are those moments in time with your champion, whether it be you completed an item, whether you've reached a certain level, whether you've gotten a certain skill, that you have these power spikes where you're most often than not stronger than the champion you're with, or in a team fight. So let's talk about that. Light, could you give us a brief rundown of when her power spikes are and how good those power spikes are?
sure thing. With new Kayle, her passive is literally a power spike mechanic. You know,
Mm,
like that's what it is. Obviously, the strongest power spike being once she hits level 16, her passive, she becomes permanently exalted, gains tons of true damage,
mm,
and just becomes a monster in team fights. So that's her biggest power spike, definitely.
mm,
But she does have smaller power spikes along the way that you really need to look out for. And I think one that people tend to overlook when talking about Kayle's weak early game is her level 6 power spike.
mm,
It's not too strong, but it gives her two very important things. One, it gives her her ult, which is incredibly useful. It is an amazing ult to have in
mm.
terms of getting ganks. You can tower dive people and
It's true.
you can call your jungler up, have them tower dive, ult them, get a kill like that. But also, once she hits level 6, her E gains a new passive where it becomes AoE.
Mm-hmm.
And her auto attacks also become AoE when she's exalted. And because of this, she actually gains a lot of wave control.
Mm,
Um, it becomes a lot easier for her to freeze the lane under her turret. It becomes
mm-hmm.
easy for her to deal with these large waves crashing into her turret so that she doesn't miss CS. And I think that's really important. It's something that you need to learn how to do because once you hit level 6, you can control the lane most likely better than your opponent,
Okay.
especially in these low elos. Just learning how to do that, managing to freeze wave near your
Mm,
turret is super strong. Especially
exactly.
allowing the jungler to come in and ganks if the turret's close or if the wave's closer to your turret,
Yep.
and you'll actually manage to potentially keep up in CS with these losing top lane matchups.
Yeah, it's good to know. And I know, like you said, her whole passive is scaling mechanic. So you talked about scaling with levels. Is there any particular items that also, kind of trigger a significant spike for her? Or like, are we talking about like, because what if you're level 16, but you've got like, I don't know, like super bad stats, like what
Yeah,
are
if
there
you
some items, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, if you somehow manage to get to level 16 without two
yeah.
items, then I guess you've missed out on your power spike.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely the
We're
power
hoping it's
spike.
not that bad. Okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Cheerio said, the power spike is Nashor's and Rageblade,
Okay.
or because the Nashor's and Rageblade just have such amazing synergy together.
Okay.
Your auto attacks will start scaling with your AP, and then every other auto attack is going to be doing double that bonus,
Okay.
um, while also simultaneously shredding even more armor and magic pen alongside her Q. It's a crazy power spike.
Nice. Well, good to know. Did you have anything else to add to the power spike thing there, Style?
I don't think so. Oh, just that a lot of people build Hextech Gunblade as well, so that's something to look
Oh,
out for.
interesting. Okay. Can you explain? Do you know why they go that? Is it just for the slow or?
Because Kayle has like so her ranged attacks are basically auto attacks with a skill of AP, and Hextech Gunblade gives you both like AP and AD,
Mhm.
and every time you auto, you're gonna heal with Hextech Gunblade, and you're also gonna
Okay.
do AP damage. I'm assuming
Nice.
that's why they do it. I haven't played Kayle yet.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's certain situations that they do that in. So, but that's good to know that there's other possible items. So yeah, Cheerio has typed in Gunblade and Wit's End too. So that's definitely good to know as well. So let's flip it back to you, Style. What do you think about Kale's new ult? We'll start with you, Style. Like, do you think it's better, worse? What do you think?
Her ult I think is better because what's it called? Now it's really good for jungle synergy, right? So you can have
Hmm.
something like a Xin Zhao diving in with his ult, and then you put your ult on top of that,
It's
or
true.
just diving in. He doesn't even have to ult. As long as he dives in, it's really good.
Yeah, as long as he just goes in,
Yeah,
like
he
he
just has
should.
to go in.
Oh,
But that's such a problem in like low elo games, right? People don't
yeah,
know
yeah,
when to engage.
yeah. It's true. And that's a good point. Now I know one of the changes is that you cannot attack during the ultimate, which I believe is different from the old ult. For those who aren't really aware of what the ult is, could you explain it to them, Light? What is Kale's ult exactly?
Sure. So what Kale's ult does now is for, I believe, 1.5 seconds, it
Hmm.
makes you or any allied champion completely invulnerable.
Hmm.
At the end of 1 second, slightly before the ult ends, it will do a massive AoE magic damage to anyone around whoever you ulted. Um,
Nice. Okay. So like
one
a
one thing to
burst.
note,
Yep.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, one thing to note that I don't think a lot of people realize is they're actually, if Kale ults herself, she cannot attack or cast any abilities.
Okay.
But there actually is a brief, like, half-second window between when the AoE damage happens and the ult ends, where she actually can attack and is still invulnerable.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
it's very slight, but it is
Is
something
that
to
a
note.
is that a bug or is that intended?
It's intended.
Okay.
Like, once the swords come down and the ult does the AoE, the
Hmm.
ult will still linger for about half a
Oh,
second long.
okay. Nice. That's good to know. Okay. Well, now let's talk about general guidelines, I guess, on this champion. If somebody's interested in picking this up, we've talked a lot about, when you should be looking, with the power spikes, play it safe early. I mean, those are general things that we've talking about. Now, I know I've seen her in top lane. Style has said he's seen him in mid lane. Shoot, I've even seen him in the jungle. Where do you think Kayle is strongest, and where should Kayle not be played ever? Let's start with you. Let's start with you, Style.
I don't think he should be played support. I mean, I played a game where
Yeah, okay,
yeah, John was playing against support Kayle. I mean, it didn't go
okay.
too bad, but we just didn't have pressure. But we did
Hmm.
end up winning the lane, but our team was just so behind, and we just lost off that.
Hmm.
But I think the problem is she doesn't get enough items because she doesn't really farm. And John didn't go
It's good.
relic
Yeah,
shield,
it's true.
like I told him to.
So part of it was because you had a user error for
Yeah.
that. All right.
The
What
thing
about
is, I
you?
was dead a lot, so
Yeah.
he did get enough CS because I was dead a lot, so he was
Oh, I
just killing
gotcha.
alone.
I got. Yeah, that seems to make sense. What about you, Light? Do you see, like, what role should she be played in? I guess, or what is she? Do you think best
Uh,
role in, and where should she not be? So we know not support, but what do you think?
Absolutely. I think I'm a cutie pie is actually playing your ADC with some success. I haven't
Interesting.
actually seen any gameplay of this, but I guess I can't comment on it because I haven't seen it yet. But I don't think she should be played anywhere other than top and mid.
And mid.
Um,
Okay, so
in
no
jungle,
jungle
she
then.
just
No jungle.
her clear is so bad that you are
Bad.
just going to
Okay.
be losing the pressure
Okay.
of you may as well not have a jungler if you have Kayle jungle for the first 20 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
like like Style said, if you play her support, you just don't have gold. You're never going to hit your power spike. You're going to be useless for the entire game instead of just early game.
Yeah.
And then that leaves mid and top. And I think in general, she's going to have better matchups top, and there's less consequences for losing lane in top than there is mid,
Mm-hmm.
which is what makes me think she's better as a top laner.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And like I said, I've seen her. I've seen her everywhere. I guess people are still trying to figure it out, but it does seem to make sense that top and mid are your best bets there, especially top because you only got one side to worry about really. Mid can work. You just got to be really aware, and at least the lane is shorter, so you can run back if you need to. But especially if you don't have flash or anything, you got to be really careful because you're already weak as it is early. And we're seeing that people even. It looks like that Sneaky has even been trying ADC Kayle, so who knows? We may be seeing some ADC Kayle as the rework people get to play it more and figure it out. And seems like good situations to pick. Kayle also seems to be like against other scaling champs because it seems like you scale harder. So things against like Cho'Gath, Nasus, or GP, it seems like you would fare well because they might not be hurting you as bad early, and so you're both just trying to get to that point. So it seems like those are good guidelines as well. Is there anything you want to add as far as just, I know it's been very new, she's still very new, but do you guys have any other general guidelines if somebody listening wants to pick up Kayle that they should remember? I think we've covered a good amount of things, but is there any other last things you want to throw in there for them?
I definitely want to say if you want to play Kayle, just be ready to lose lane. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
In every lane, someone has to lose. It's okay if that person's you. But,
Someone said, Purple said, best advice is if you want to play Kayle, mute all.
Mute all.
Hey, you know what? That is probably generally good advice. I do it most of my games just because, it just makes me focus. But good point. Yeah, and if you tilt easily early on in the games, Kayle is probably not a champion for you. So get to know your play style and play accordingly. Did you have any last guidelines there, Style? I know you haven't played her, but anything you want to throw in?
Yeah, but what runes do you guys take on Kayle?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
I know John's been taking is it lethal tempo, but a lot of players have been taking klepto as well, so I don't really know.
Interesting.
I've been taking press the attack on all my ADCs.
Yeah.
And I don't really know if press the attack on Kayle would be good.
What do you do? Because I know you have been playing her light. So what do you go?
I always go lethal tempo. I think that in low elo it's just better because you can sacrifice on the sustain that you would get with fleet footwork with less consequences in lower elo. And then you just have so much damage late game, as opposed to press the attack where you're only going to be doing more damage to one person. The whole thing with Kayle is that she can be hitting the entire team at once. So I think lethal tempo just leads her to doing so much more damage than
probably the way to go. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I'm looking at U.GG right now, and it looks like I'm sure the secondary tree is variable, but it looks like they have domination is the most common with Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter. Is that what you've been playing, Light, or what do you play on the secondary tree?
I personally have been taking lethal tempo with sorcery as the secondary, and I'll do mana flow band and transcendence.
Okay.
I do that. The mana flow band helps you farm in these losing lanes because your E is ranged and your Q is also ranged. But if you try to spam those abilities to farm, you're gonna run out of mana super fast. So I take mana flow band so I don't ever fall too far behind in CS, and transcendence just so you can get more cooldowns.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that would be, that's especially important, especially with that ult of yours. I'm assuming you want that on cooldown as much as possible. So great. That's I think y'all have a lot of information there to if you're thinking about Kayle, you got some good info. Now, real quickly, do you think where she's at right now, do you think she'll be getting some incoming buffs or incoming nerfs? Or do you think they actually might just let her, be? What do you guys think? Let's start with you, Style.
I think they'll just let her be. I don't think she'll get nerfed because her win rate is already really low. So I would say either she'll remain the same, or she'll get a buff early and a nerf late.
Okay. What about you, Light?
I'm hoping that they let her stay because the past 4 reworks they've done, every
Yeah.
single one of them has just been
Yeah.
absurdly overpowered.
Yes, I agree.
And Kayle is the only one who is not like defining the meta as soon as she comes out.
true.
So I think
Yeah.
she's in a fine spot, and Riot should just let people, experiment with her more and see
learn.
where she falls.
Cool. All right. Well, that's our topic on Kayle rework. Let us know your thoughts. You can tweet it at the All In Podcast. Let's move on to On Hit Neeko. If you guys have even played this, first of all, have you guys played this? Have you also got a chance to play On Hit Neeko? I mean, we'll get into it was nerfed, but did you get a chance to play it when it wasn't?
I have not. I never played it because during the time it was broken, I played with a friend who did nothing but play On Hit Neeko, regardless of what role he got. And
how did he do?
He had the most damage every single
Wow,
game. Like
okay.
no matter what, no matter how
Yeah.
hard he lost his lane, no matter how hard we were losing, he would have the most damage. And I just, it's
That's pretty funny. Did you get a chance to play it, Style?
Yeah, I played a couple of games. It was pretty
Did you
good.
like it? You liked it?
Yeah,
It was good?
strong.
Yeah, if you guys don't know...
I played Neeko.
No, go ahead.
I played Neeko back when she wasn't AD, so I used to play bot lane Neeko, but I used to build her full AP.
AP, yeah.
So I did that for a bunch of games. I think I did all my placement games playing AP Neeko bot lane.
Wow.
And that
Okay,
was
so
pretty
you
good.
it must have been real fun for you since you already had some experience with Neeko to try her out. But yeah, if you guys didn't know, On Hit Neeko was a pretty OP thing, and it was kind of had to do with her W passives, Shape Splitter. Basically, passively deals extra damage with every third auto attack, so you build attack speed, damage, and you can deal a lot of damage just off your auto attacks alone. But then she also has good CC and all of that stuff. So it was really OP. Even pros were playing it. But if you're wanting to get your your feet wet with this, unfortunately they did nerf it, and because it was very strong, and so they basically what they did is they nerfed her base stats. So for her attack speed, went from 1.5% per level, or actually it went down to 1.5% per level, down from 3%. Her 80 went down to 2. Per level from 3, and then her W on hit damage was 50 to 170, and it went down to 50 to 130. So they did nerf it. I don't know if it's still viable. We saw it. I saw it. Darshan played it in LCS, but I don't think it's as viable. Do you guys know if it's still viable? Have you heard anything? Have you tried it since the nerfs? Do you think our listeners should play it and try it? What do you guys think? Light?
I definitely think it's still viable. It's not just overpowered as it was before. But I also think that it's better to just go full AP Neeko.
Okay. Than the 80 version.
Yeah. Because it wasn't like, nothing about AD Neeko got buffed. It's just that people discovered the build.
Discovered
and that's
it, yeah.
blew up. In fact, the only thing that got buffed about Neeko was her root duration, which honestly benefits AP just as much as it builds AD.
Definitely. But I mean, it's kind of cool. It showed a little bit of, again, people got creative, and they got to try different things. What about you, Style? Would you ever try On Hit Neeko like in a serious game where you're trying to climb?
Yeah, I would play. I would only play her in ADC though. I know a lot of players have been playing it in top lane.
Yeah,
but I would just leave it to like bot lane because Neeko has some really like aggressive matchups in top lane. So either your kiting has to be like really really good, but in bot lane you can get away with like a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So would you? And you would play her AD then still too, or you wouldn't mind playing her AD? Okay, that's cool. And I guess
think the good thing about Neeko is like if you take stuff like Hail of Blades, you can just adapt to when you're in the game.
It's true.
And I think that's really good because I've been taking Halo Blades and then deciding whether I want to go AP or AD like
that's
in
true.
the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and that's kind of nice because again, it kind of is almost a flex, thing that you can do in the game.
Yeah.
Take your enemy off guard, but it's good to know. So we won't spend too much time on it. Just know that if you have not heard, On Hit Neeko for a second was really OP. Now it's okay, probably not as OP as it was. So if you are looking for a new 80 to try, might want to give your hand at On Hit Neeko and see how that goes. I'm sure you can Google it and find some builds. But let's go ahead and move on to positional ranks. So if you guys know, there were different ranks for different positions. I personally, I don't know if it affected me that much because for the brief moments it was on, I was just playing one position anyways. Did you guys take advantage of it? I know there was things such as splashing, where you could, get to a certain LP range on your main, and then instead of, let's say you were at like 70 or 80 like LP towards your next tier, you could splash on a different role, win the game, and get like just enough LP so that you could, then play your main role and guarantee that you would get into promo. So different strategies and things like that. But did you guys have any impression? What were your impressions of the positional ranks before it was removed? Did it affect you at all? I mean, or was that just something that affected, top tier players and at the very bottom tier?
I think it affected everyone, and I am glad it is gone. I did not like positional ranks at all.
So explain it then a little bit, because, for me, like, I don't really know, nor did I really care because I didn't really understand it. So why are you glad that it's gone, and how was it like affecting everything?
At first I thought it was a cool idea, but I played about 5 ranked games, and I immediately realized like this huge just underlying flaw with it, and it's that I'm an ADC main. Yeah. I want to rank up my ADC role. Yes. Whenever I got auto-filled, I did not care if I won or lost that game.
It's true. Yeah.
And I realize I am not the only person who views this way, correct?
And so you're saying people would adjust their play? And by adjusting play, I mean they would just like troll or feed?
Yeah, so if I finally get a game of ADC, well, I just got some Z1 trick as my support who autofilled, and he doesn't care if he loses his game. It's not going to affect it. He's going to lose 3 LP for his mid roll that he actually cares about. So what's he going to do? He's going to play Z support and just troll me because he doesn't care if he loses.
Yeah, that's definitely. I think that was the biggest complaint that I had been hearing was that people not caring. What about you, Style? Did that affect you as well? Were you seeing that in your games also?
Well, we don't have positional ranks.
Oh yeah, that's right. You didn't. That's right. Well, I guess the way it worked out, you're lucky then. So you didn't get to experience. I've seen a lot of
stuff on it. I've seen a lot of stuff based on it. But I don't think it would affect me much, because if I didn't get ADC, I'd get mid. And I don't really mind playing mid.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And I don't think it would affect you much, because if you get support, and no one wants support, right? So you'd almost always get your role.
Yeah, exactly.
You like support, but you can never get auto-filled, right?
That's true, yeah.
Like, it's really, like, I don't know, I play with a support, like a support main, and she's like a Nami one trick, and, like, either if she gets support and plays Nami, or we just have to dodge, because she can't play top, right?
Yeah,
but the only times she gets top is, like, really early in the morning, when there's no players.
No players, yeah.
But if you play say around in the afternoon, then you literally always get your role. Like, you'll never see like a support player not getting their role.
That's true. Rare. As a support main, I can vouch for that. It's like very rare that I ever got support, or didn't get support. Yeah.
But in ADC, it's a lot different. It's a lot different, because I know I was watching Dan's stream. And he would get like, so say we talked about this on his stream. It's like every 10 games. So say every 10 games you play, you get at least one auto-filled game.
Yeah.
Especially if your secondary is like top, right?
Yeah.
So what I usually do is I put bot as my primary and my mid as my secondary, because mid is the most played role by far.
Yeah, yeah.
But the problem is, if you can't play mid, if you can't play mid and then you get mid, then what do you do?
That's right. That's true. Yeah, no, I mean, I could see how it was a problem. I guess I didn't really notice it because, like you said, I was a support main. But from what everybody was saying, it was terrible. I know a lot of the pros hated it, a lot of the high elo people hated it, and apparently everyone else hated it. So they got rid of it, which is great. I think overwhelmingly people are happy about it. But I did hear Freak clarify and say that positional matchmaking is still there, but positional rank isn't. So, meaning if you're playing an off roll, it will try to match you with somebody with a whatever their MMR is for that role as well. So he clarified it, saying that the MMR positional MMR is still there, but it's not a rank anymore.
I
So go ahead,
That
like.
does give some red flags because another problem with the positional ranks thing is that some of these matches would have horrible, horrible balance of elos. I
Mm,
mean, people were posting pictures of games that were like platinum elo that would have a
mhm.
masters player on one team and a gold player
Whoa,
on the other team.
yeah, that's a big
Um,
variance.
But that, yeah,
it's like you'd have games with people who should never ever be in matches against each other.
That's
Uh,
true. And that's frustrating for both players, like the lower tier one and the higher tier one, because the higher tier one is obviously expecting players of that caliber, but lower tier ones also don't want to be going up against like challenger players. Like we're trying to play with people that are somewhat around our level, and that's just
exactly.
that's a big
yeah, but
disparity. So that's what Freak said, but I'm not sure how that plays out. So what do you have to say, Style?
so sometimes, but that's usually not the case. When you get like elo disparities, it's
Mm-hmm.
because the higher elo players are like abusing the system, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what they do is, say you have like a diamond one top laner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who is actually like so let's say a plat 3 ADC,
Yeah.
and you have his duo queue partner who's a diamond one ADC, but he's a
Yeah.
plat 3 top laner. So this guy queues for, so the diamond one top laner queues for ADC, and the diamond one ADC queues for top lane, and then they
Then they
just swap
swap.
roles in game.
Well, what they said
So
though is that Freak said that there are indicators. I don't know how. I don't know how they do it, but there's indicators that prevent that. So even if they swapped, or even if whatever, I don't know how. Like I said, I don't know how they do this, but Freak has said that they have a system in place to prevent that from happening. So I don't
they
know if
have it
it's
now.
the truth. They have it now. Okay.
They have it
Because
now. They
I
didn't
heard
have
him
it
talk
before.
about that, and I was just wondering, like, if that was a thing or not. Because yeah, I definitely people could abuse that for sure. And so as we're at it now, with it gone, is there anything that we should watch out for as we're climbing the ranks, or is this something that we don't really need to worry about? Is there anything that we can prevent from something bad trolling to happen, or is this just kind of like you just got to go with the punches? Is there anything we can do?
Ah, no,
Not really.
you just
Okay.
gotta roll with.
Well, I
You
mean,
have
and I
to.
think, yeah, and I think, I mean, they removed it, so they're trying to I guess they obviously heard the complaint, so hopefully it's a better experience for everyone. I get what they were trying to do. I was also excited for it in the beginning, but I guess as it played out, not everything works out the way you intended it to. So,
Hmm.
I think that's kind of the direction that they went. So, anyways, for you guys, that's just a quick blurb on positional ranks. Just go with the punches. But that's what it was. That's why people were complaining. So if you were ever wondering, what the big fuss is, like me, where I was a support main, didn't really affect me. That's what it was all about. So, all right, let's talk real quickly on the game of the week. Did you guys happen to see this G2 versus Fnatic? I know I linked it to y'all, but I don't know if you guys ever actually got to watch it. Did y'all see it?
I did watch it, and wow.
I know, right? Did you get to see it, Style?
Yeah. Did you
Oh
enjoy
my.
the, what is it called? The Draven ban?
Oh yeah. Did you like that, Light? If you guys don't know, Light is
uh,
a Draven, a lover of Draven.
you can call me a one trick. It's okay. I'm a
Okay,
Draven
one trick Draven. Okay, he's a Draven one trick. I didn't want. Some people take offense to that term. Yeah. I mean, did that hurt you? Seeing Draven banned, or were you like? I mean, that means that
I'm
he's
just loving the fact that Draven's actually a threat that needs to
exactly.
be
I was
banned in
about.
LCS.
Yeah,
That's
that's right.
Have you
something that
been
we haven't
watching,
seen
what
in
is
a
it?
long time.
Have you watched LCK? There's a player in KT. He's like a Draven one trick, and every team just bans Draven against him.
Automatically.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
and
it's
it's gone through a couple of times. So there's been he's had like one or two Draven games. And
I mean,
the
and you
guy's
see that.
Draven is crazy.
I mean, you see that like with even some of the people in the LCS. Like I know Viper is they ban his Riven out a lot. They'll ban a lot of the champions that if there's one tricks that have came from solo queue into LCS, they'll ban them out sometimes. But yeah, that's interesting that when you're so good at a champ, they have to ban that champ. They have to waste a ban basically for you. But if you guys haven't seen it yet, I just put this here because if you haven't watched much competitive gaming and League of Legends, like I understand because that's a lot of time to watch when you could be playing, but take a moment and watch this entire game. Look, I'll say even if you watch the highlights themselves were like 15 minutes because the game was so intense. And I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to say who's won or whatever, but just know that I am saying that this is probably the best game of this season. And I don't know if we'll see a better game except until we get to like Worlds or something. But this was probably one of the best games I've seen in a long time. Like even compared to like some like the Worlds games, like there was just it was so good. And so if you haven't done so, take some time, YouTube it, check out that game. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. It's worth giving up some time that you could be playing to watch that game because it was really really amazing. So I just wanted to spotlight that, and every now and then if there's a really good game that you guys should check out, because believe it or not, watching games like that, even though they're different, with competitive and solo queue, there are still things that you can appreciate in there because you know how frustrating it is in solo queue to see. So when you see like coordination like that, it's pretty awesome. So, all right, let's go to, whoops. So I messed up this slide, but it says champs to learn, and I didn't take out the bullet points here. But so I asked you guys to kind of think of a champ that our listeners could maybe take with them into solo queue. Like maybe they're looking for somebody to learn, somebody fresh to play. Like I know that's why I went into Renekton, because I was just looking for something fresh, fresh perspective. And I'll tell you mine in a second. But I'll start with you guys. So here's how it's going to work. Give us your champion, Light. We'll start with you. Give us your champion that our listeners should give it a go. Invest time in learning them because for whatever reason, back it up. Like why is your reason? So we'll start with you, Light.
Sure. I was thinking of a lot of ADCs, but I remembered Style is
okay.
also an ADC main.
That's all right. Doesn't matter.
It's fun if we have the same champ, but I doubt we'll have the same champ.
I decided to take a different route. I am recommending Vi to everyone today.
Okay. All right.
I definitely think that jungle is a good role to climb with. You have a lot of impact. You can determine whether or not your lanes win. If there's someone on your team that needs to get fed, you can get them fed. If there's someone on the enemy team that needs to die, you can have them die. And I think Vi really excels in that. Early game, she doesn't have as strong as an early game as a lot of the meta junglers right now, like Jarvan, Rek'Sai, Elise, so on. But she does still have really strong ganks, especially like in these low elos. You're not gonna have people dodging your Qs, and that's really all you need. She has like in these low elos where the warding isn't as prominent, you can just straight up walk into top and Q the enemy laner. Congratulations, you just got a kill.
Yeah. It's true.
Other than that, I mean, Vi just got huge buffs. I mean,
yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Mm-hmm.
They buffed literally everything about her kit, from QWER and passive. Everything about her got buffed, and so she's very strong right now. And I just think she's a great champion to learn because whatever your team needs, Vi can do it.
Yeah, and I guess talk about her playstyle, and I know from what I've heard, again, I don't play Vi much, but I've heard they've nerfed her damage a little bit, is from what I hear, but I heard that she's much tankier now. Is that the case?
Yeah, so she got very slight nerfs to her, what is it, her E damage, I believe. That's the only nerf she received, but other than that, they made her passive better. So if you don't know what her passive is every time whenever it's off cooldown, if you connect one of your abilities, you will gain a shield. And so what they did is they made it so that every time you proc your W, the cooldown of your passive resets. So if you just dive in as Vi and you are proccing your W over and over again, you are going to be getting shields nonstop, just shields over and over and over again. So even though Vi doesn't really build tank, she builds like kind of bruiser with health and AD.
Mm-hmm.
She is hard to kill because of her passive.
Wow.
You can afford to just dive in to a 1v5, and you will be able to set up a win for your team. And that's what I really think is good about Vi, especially right now, especially in these low elos,
Mhm.
where characters like Vayne and Jinx and all these hyperscalers are going to be such huge threats.
Yeah.
I think Vi is really good at countering that. If the enemy team has a Twitch that became super fed, that Twitch needs to die. What does
Yeah.
Vi need to do to kill the Twitch? Hit the R button.
Hit the R button. That's
Threat
right.
removed.
Now, would you like, because so Nocturne has a similar play style. Would you take Vi over Nocturne?
I would take Vi over Nocturne just because Nocturne is a lot squishier. He does have the
Okay.
spell shield to help benefit him in these ganks. His ult is a bit easier to use, I suppose, but
Mhm.
I really just think that the tankiness makes the difference.
Okay.
Because
Um,
whereas, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, whereas like Nocturne, he's an assassin. He needs to just get in and get out. Vi goes in and wins.
Can stay in. Yeah, can stay in. Yeah, exactly. And I think too, if you're playing again like with somebody who has like a protection ult, like let's say Kayle or whatever, or somebody who can even protect you even more, that seems like it would be pretty OP. But she is like that kind of diver, and I think it makes sense that they buffed her durability a little bit, because that's what she does. She wants to get in there, take out the important target, and then survive and be able to do stuff still. So that's kind of nice, because her being a little more tankier with the extra shields, you're going to be able to survive that a little more. And like I said, if you have a good complementary champ like Lulu, what Purple said, that's a good one, or Kayle, or somebody that can ult you, maybe Oriana or whatever. But all of those things sound like it would be really good. So if you're looking to try a jungler, one, jungle is a good game. One, I think it teaches you a lot of things about the macro game. So you'll learn a lot there, because different roles will teach you different things in the whole game, and so learning a different perspective is important, because I know before I ever played jungle, I would always get pissed that my jungler would never gank, even though I was under turret. And then I realized that there are reasons sometimes that they don't gank you. So play it for sure, especially if you've never played it before, because it'll give you a different perspective. And Vi definitely does seem to be, they just buffed her, like Light was saying. She seems relatively... I played her a couple games. She seems relatively straightforward, so it doesn't seem like there's too many mechanics there to learn. So if you're looking for a jungler to try somebody on, Light's pick is Vi. So pretty good there. All right, what about you, Style? Who's your champ for us?
Mine would have to be Ashe.
Ooh, okay. Oldie but goodie. Ashe has been around.
Yeah, I think the crit changes really help her, because her slows are based off her crit, right? So the more crit you build, the more you slow them. And I think it's a super easy champ to play. And in lane, all you do is press W, and then you press R. And R is a game changer.
Sure, yeah.
Just like Vi, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you press R, and then so say they have like a fed Twitch, fed whatever Jinx, you just press R and you can probably kill them. I think it's worse in higher elos because you can build things like QSS, but low elo, I don't think. I think Ashe is a pretty solid pick.
Yeah, and
low
in
elo
low
doesn't know
elo,
what QSS is.
well, low elo, you'll have me
You
who
tell
buys
them.
QSS. Like, I'll buy it, but I won't press it. So
Yeah.
I'll forget I have it. But yeah, no, I think that's a really good pick, for all the reasons you mentioned. What are some potential pitfalls, or something that a player who wants to pick up an ADC and wants to try Ashe, what's some of her pitfalls that they should avoid trying to fall into?
So she's not really that good 1v1, and if you
Okay.
miss your ult, so if you're playing like against a Vayne and she has like tumble, you can tumble out of ult, right? You can do things
Yeah.
like that, and the problem is if you miss your ult, that's like, oh, I think that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
But again,
sure.
I think it's a really late game scaling champ again. With Runans, you can just hit everyone from the back line. And if you have Blade of the Ruin King, you can tank shred as well.
Yeah, that's good to know. I think one of the things you have to remember with Ash too is that you don't have any built-in escapes except for if you have flash. So you do have slows, which are great, but you also have to understand that know your distance as well, because if people have gap closers or anything like that, they can jump on you, and if you don't have a competent support, then it might be rough to do that damage. But you know what? If it helps argue this position, even I play Ashe, so that tells you that if I played Ashe and I can do okay with her, then you can as well. And I don't even play ADC, so I definitely Ashe has a special place in my heart as well. She has a lot of good utility. CC is always good to have, and with the crit changes, like Style was saying, with the CC that you have, with the scaling, there's just so many good things that you can do with Ashe. But again, just one of those things. Remember that she doesn't have any escapes, so you want to make sure that one, you don't get too close if you don't have a way out, or if there's not somebody there to peel for you, and two, you probably want to hit your ult or save it for when people have used their gap closers, because for sure that's like your only way to get out. So I think that's really good. Those are some really good choices there. You got Vi for jungle, and you got Ashe for ADC, and we'll try to do this once every episode to kind of give you guys some ideas for champs that you might want to try out and play. For me, I think you guys already know it. It's Renekton. I picked up Renekton probably at the beginning of this month, especially during this break. I've been, you guys know I play support mainly. I actually even switched from playing Nami mostly to playing more AP damage supports, not Lux style, not Lux, but I have been playing a lot more Zyra, and I've even just been playing Brand, not on ranked solo duo, but just Brand and like Flex or different queues, just because I want to get better at Brand before bringing him into ranked solo duo. But I feel like, or anyways, the way that I feel is that, unless I have an ADC that I know, like that I'm duoing with, even though Soraka or Nami or even Janna or Lulu, like these are all great protector supports, sometimes I just feel like it doesn't matter how much you can protect them if your ADC is just not doing anything. It's very hard. And I'm the type that would rather have an over aggressive ADC than an ADC who doesn't do anything. Like that really gets me going. So I would rather have an AP support that are that I can maybe carry myself. So Zyra, Brand, those are the champs that I was doing. But going back to my Renekton pick, I wanted to try a different lane, and Renekton was one that I felt like, he's okay. I don't think he's like super OP, but I don't think he's weak either. I wanted to pick somebody that can clear minions easily, easy to last hit. Plus, I knew there was a lot of resources to learn him. For me, I like to really get in depth with the champion I'm trying to learn. And so there's a lot of material like matchup guides and YouTube channels dedicated to just Renekton. So learning a champ that has that for me is one that I can invest a lot of time in, because I know that there's going to be answers to the questions that I have. So if you are looking for a top laner, I do think Renekton is good, because even if you're in a losing matchup, you can wave clear like no other. And so that's always good, because you can just shove out, roam, shove out, take jungle, shove out, take, scuttle, or go to another objective, and you can win in that way. And he's pretty good in the mid game. So if you want to try top laner, I highly recommend Renekton. So those are our three picks. You got Vi, you got Ashe, and you got Renekton. For the rest of my stream, you'll be seeing me play Renekton as well, for the rest of this month at least. But that was pretty much it for this podcast. Did you guys have any closing thoughts, or is there any last bits of advice that you want to give, Style or Light, to our listeners as they head into the Rift this week, as they climb? Anything that we may have missed in our topics? Do you guys got any last tips or anything?
Sure. Don't tilt. If you start losing a bunch, stop playing.
Yeah, and you were just saying earlier that you were doing it in a way where if you lost one ranked game, you would just quit playing ranked for that day and do something else. And that is advice that I've never taken, but it seems like it's good advice. So, don't tilt. What about you, Style? Got anything?
No, I mean, you can. What is it? I would still play ranked even if I lost.
I know, that's me too.
If you lose too many, then I get it. But like,
yeah,
I can't play the same champ over and over again. Even though I played like what 300 games of Jinx last like 2 seasons ago,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like
Yeah, that's me
I
too.
can like keep playing the same champ.
That's me too. Like, and that's why I gotta switch it up. But yeah, keep your champion pool small. Yeah, all of these things are great advice, and yeah, so we're all about trying to help you climb, especially if you don't have a lot of time to climb. You know, the few games that you can play, we want to make sure that you're using them to the best of your abilities. But I just want to thank Light and Style again for just being here on the podcast. If you guys want to if you have any questions for us or want to tweet anything, then you could tweet us at the All In Podcast or email us your topics or questions at the All In Podcast, lol@gmail.com. But that's going to do it for episode 1. Thanks again to my co-host. Thanks again for watching, guys. Don't forget to check us out on the YouTube channel, on the stream. But we'll be looking forward to doing this at least once a week on Mondays at this time. So feel free to be here. Thanks again, guys, for being here. And I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks again.